The quote's attributed to a guy by the name of Eric Hoffer, Hoffer. And I love the quote, but I give this other variation of it is that what got you here won't get you there. Right? Like, when that patient comes in and they say, hey, diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, this isn't where I want to be. Well, you know what you've learned so far is what got you here. And if you want to get to a different place, you're going to have to learn some different things. Right now, that applies from and this is as close as I want to get to clinical in our conversation, but that applies in other directions as well, right? It applies that, hey, if you want your business to get better, you need to be continuing to learn, right? You need to be learning how to leverage this or how to leverage that. You need to be able to make those adjustments and to make those informed adjustments and not just do what everybody else is doing. Right. And I think I think that's an observation that we can make for 2025 is that there was, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we've always done it. And that did not serve everybody well. Right. So there's, from that, I take the invitation that, hey, you need to have a plan to learn. You need to have a plan to grow.
Welcome to the Pharmacy Quality Solutions Quality Corner Show. Buckle up and put your thinking cap on. The Quality Corner Show starts now.
Hello, Quality Corner Show listeners. Welcome to the PQS podcast, where we focus on medication use, quality improvement, and how we can utilize pharmacists to improve patient health outcomes. I'm your host, Nick Dorich. Now, today's episode is actually an annual or seasonal tradition for us here at the PQS show, and it's one that requires us to bring back a returning guest and a returning host to the Quality Corner show. So we're going to jump right into it for today. I'm going to bring in my friend, former co-host of the Quality Corner show as well, Jesse McCullough. Jesse, welcome. Season's greetings to you. How are you today?
Season's greetings to you as well, Nick. I am well, and it is so good to be back. As you were doing that introduction, I started to do the math. We started this. Was it in 2019?
I think it was 2019. Yeah.
Wow. And here we are. And first, congratulations on keeping this going. I'm sure that it is not an easy thing. I remember when you and I sat down and we sketched out the first, 6, 8, 10 episodes. Yeah. I don't know what your thought process was, but I think my thought process was we would probably have an endpoint to it, and here you are 6, 7 years later, keeping after it. So good for you. And thank you for the service that you do for pharmacists in this quality space.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot to share, and I think this is going to be somewhat, we're going to get into it as the theme of the episode in a way. But there's always something new to learn. The only constant is change, right? So especially for us as a show and for us at PQS, we look at this, we're in the healthcare quality space. There's always a way to get better at what we do. That's just a fact of human nature. So that may be something I'm not as in tune as I used to be, Jess, and I'm sure you may have the same experience. We're not as up to date on our clinical knowledge, and there's CE courses on that, but there's a lot of things I think we like to focus on with this show that go towards process, how we're delivering care, how we're preparing our team, and how we're utilizing and training what is often described as those soft skills. But I've never liked that terminology myself, the soft skills, because it's really the things that are actually most important. It's how you communicate with your coworkers, with your peers, with your bosses, and then ultimately for those of us that are in healthcare, most importantly, the patients, the people that we're really serving. So to me, soft sounds negative or a little flimsy, and that's really not the intent. Those, if anything, those are the skills that we most want to focus on and give people a pathway forward, something new to consider. So your thoughts?
Well, yeah, Nick, it's very much the interpersonal skills, right? Like how do you connect? How do you relate? How do you leverage people? How do you help them take a step forward is really what it comes down too. There's, in my head, I sort of look at it as clinical and non-clinical skills. And just full disclaimer here in the early going, and just to echo what Nick said, you do not want to take any clinical advice from me. Right. That's not the world that I live in.
Different show.
Yeah. Like there's other people who have forgotten more clinically than I've ever known. Right. But it was getting involved in just these performance and quality and all those things now 18 years ago, something like that. And, that really stretched the way that I thought. And then you had to look at it. Okay, well, how do you do this? And I know there was a big part of my early going in this space, which was very much process focused. But like there's actually, the special seasoning that you put on process. It's like the sizzle that you put on the steak, I guess, right? That can really help you do that, because you can have excellent processes but still struggle, and you can have excellent systems and they're not used. And that was my experience, going back to 2010. And so it has been very much an emphasis on how do you get a little bit deeper? How do you become a little more sticky? How do you increase your influence with people to make that positive impact?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jess, at the end of today, we'll give you a chance to shout out Keystone Pharmacy Insights, where people can find you and more information on that, your LinkedIn and your Facebook community, things like that. But we'll go ahead and get into our conversation for today, as we've already just in our introduction started to dive into that. And what we want to talk about is our inflection point in pharmacy and in healthcare, and how we continue to evolve and how we continue to change. I've been in this profession now as a pharmacist, or someone that graduated for pharmacy school, for almost 15 years. Jess, you and I have known each other longer than that, and we'll just keep it at that.
That's code that says I'm older. I'm much older. That's the fancy code that we have.
Yeah, and I feel like in pharmacy, each and every year we hit a point where it's never been a more difficult year in pharmacy. And yet this profession continues to persevere. It continues to change, and it continues to evolve. And I've had this conversation with many a pharmacist, but with many mentors, with many personal friends, with many family members that work in different professions that are not at all in healthcare. And these issues, or these items that we're facing, these changes that happen to be occurring in the market that we're in and how we're operating, pharmacy and healthcare are not the only industry facing these kind of challenges year in and year out. So I always like to take it as an opportunity to say, what do we hear? What do others hear? What can we learn from one another? What can we consider? So, Jess, with that as our background, I've got a couple of things in mind that I want to start as far as our conversation and our discussion. But let's start with you. Your experience working, mentoring, leading pharmacy team leaders in 2025. What have you learned? What have you seen? What comes first to mind for you?
I guess I would start with this, and I would say that this is a learning, right? It's a continuous process. I wish I could tell you that I have this down pat, but I would tell you that, and I've thought this, I think, pretty much at the end of each year for the last several years, but the need for more and better leaders in pharmacy has never been greater. It's never been greater. Like, like whenever I started down this path, it was like, okay. And you start to make an impact. And as you start to make that impact, you see that, oh, there's actually more. Like, and it's to your to your previous comment. Like the environment continues to change, and we need to be ready for that. We need to have an understanding of that. We need to be mobile and flexible and ready to adjust and adapt and to move forward. One of my mentors actually uses an analogy like you're trying to cross a stream or a river, right? There's a current that's pushing you downstream. And so if you look directly across the stream and you say, I want to go from here, directly to the other side, if you just start going straight, that current's going to push you downstream. And so you need to have, a bit of an upstream angle that as you go across, it allows you to hit there. And I would say that has been highlighted and underscored and italicized and bold-faced to me this year. And it's happened on the most small or the smallest of level, with conversations with pharmacists around issues that they have with coworkers, people on their team, and how do I can't get somebody to do this, and oftentimes I feel like people are looking for my blessing to go fire somebody. And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure. But then you see it on some of the largest levels, right? With chains with hundreds and hundreds of stores ceasing operations, and then the impact that has, and that doesn't happen in a vacuum. That impact then affects all sorts of neighboring stores and so on and so forth. And this is something I was thinking about this earlier today, about how one of the things that it's easy to lose sight of is that our competition in pharmacy, in healthcare, our competition is poor health. Right? Now we get sideways on that very, very quickly. We become, our competition is the other pharmacy down the street. Our competition is the PBM or the health plan. Our competition is fill in the blank. Our competition is online pill mills. I mean, you make it up, right? But the fact of the matter is that there is so much need out there, that our focus has to be on how do we help the people in front of us and deliver such a positive result.
Yeah, it's a great call, Jesse, because I think every interaction that we have, individuals, but professionals as well, right? Just think of yourself as the individual, whether it's with your family, with your friends, whether it's something that's professional, whether it's something that's spiritual. You're having that interaction, and it doesn't, I don't mean to make it out as being transactional, as a 1 + 1 = 2, or a 1 - 1 gets you back to a net zero. It doesn't need to be that way, but every interaction needs to be something that's positive, right? And I think that is a key part to healthcare. When what we are doing when we are working with patients, if the patient is not seeing the value of that, they're not going to come and see us as the provider, right? Patients should certainly have a choice in the healthcare provider that they are seeing. And every interaction with a patient that we are having should be going to understand what it is that they're trying to achieve. Are we helping them achieve that goal? Part of it will be coaching them as well. Sometimes the patient may, I think we all have the experience where we want to go on the side quest, if you will, or there's something, hey, that this is temporary, but long term, what do we want to get to, right? So, and having different levels of goals is important, right? For one patient, it may be maybe a patient with diabetes where it's, hey, I want to a patient with type 2 diabetes specifically in this example, right? Where it may start off with where, hey, the goal may be, I want to get off these medications. I don't want to be utilizing medications any longer. Part of that action plan might be, well, hey, in order to help you do that, yes, you're going to have to exercise and diet, but what also would help? Taking these medications on a regular routine basis. The more you're utilizing them properly, and as long as we're managing that, I think we can afford it, no side effects, et cetera, in conjunction with those other lifestyle changes, that might get us to that goal. So there's a little part of this where I think your call out there, Jess, is one of the most meaningful, revelations that we can go back to. And hey, who are we serving with this? Both from the type of person and what we want to do at our core, but then the business aspect. How are we operating in that sense?
Yep. Yeah, that became real apparent to me. I don't know if you and I had this conversation or not, but my brother had some health issues over the course of and did I share the story with you? I feel like I did.
Yep.
But I was with my brother in the ER, I think my brother was in the ER 4 times in like 11 days. Right. It was a very frustrating, guess I was with him the last time. But it was, he was seeking, identification and resolute, or, at least diagnosis of what the issue was, and was getting nowhere. Right. And it was a very challenging, thing to see. And it's interesting that observing that, right, and to recognize that his scenario, while I hope it is the exception to the rule, my guess is that it's a little more common. Right. My guess is that it's a little more common for people out there. And, especially in the world of pharmacy, people come to us when their lives are upside down. Right. We get involved when people's lives are upside down. And, I think one of the biggest things that we can serve people is hope and optimism. To your example of the type 2 diabetic patient. I remember one day I was working in Conneaut Lake, Pennsylvania, and the pharmacy opened at 8 a.m. and it was, I don't know, it was like 10 minutes after 8, and a guy comes in and he says to me, "Well, I bet you know why I'm here." And I have no clue why you're here. Right. I don't know. He's like, "I just came from the doctor," and he gave me his prescription, and his prescription was for a blood pressure medicine. And he said, how long am I going to have to take this?" And what I didn't see it back then. I can see it much more clearly now. But what he was looking for, some encouragement. He was looking for some optimism. He was looking for some hope with what was going on, and because he didn't want to take it the rest of his life. I mean, you can tell that by the question that's asked. And I took one look at the prescription and I just said, "Oh, you'll probably take this the rest of your life." And I look back and I say, wow, could I have been? This is why I don't do clinical things, folks. Right? I look back and I say, here's a guy that was looking for some hope. He was looking for some encouragement. He was looking for some, looking for some optimism. And I poured water all over that fire, and really missed an opportunity to better collaborate with a patient to help move them in the right direction. And it was hard to see back then. Now, I think we all know that there's a huge portion of patients that the rest of your life is the correct answer or is the real answer. But like, the other part of it is that, you have to keep them engaged. You have to keep them involved. You have to keep them, moving forward and making those adjustments so that they don't have, so that their quality of life can be maintained for as long as we can.
Yeah. So thinking on this topic, Jesse, and when we were preparing for this, you sent me, and I'll share it now if that's okay with you.
Yeah, please do.
Sent me a quote here, and I think this really resonates to some of the message that we want to try to get across. So the quote: "In times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists." So that part of it, I think, really speaks poetically to what we're hoping to share as a message or as an idea. And I think just in your example here, for yours, the patient trying to figure out what they're trying to do, what we want to do or how we want to change that situation is how we can help the patient learn to what they should or could expect, or, hey, they don't want to take the medication for the rest of their life. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we can sympathize. We can empathize with them on those parts of it. However, we can help them learn and understand at the same time that, this is going to be a chronic disease, something you have to deal with the rest of your life. If we're working together, how can we as the pharmacy staff help you to maximize the use of the medication to minimize any other detrimental effects? What do we want to do? What do we want to be achieving together for that purpose? And that's where I think the difference, as the quote goes here, for the learning goes to what's that next question? What's that next part? And I think the important aspect to this is the tense. when we talk about it, the learners versus the learned,
Mhm.
learned is only past tense. And our knowledge is only as current as what it is today. So are you committed to knowing everything for this instance, or are you committed to what will be continued learning moving forward?
Right. I look at that, and I mean, that's the call to move forward, right? I use a slightly different phrase. I love this quote. If anybody is looking for it, the quote's attributed to a guy by the name of Eric Hoffer, Hoffer. And I love the quote, but I give this other variation of it, is that what got you here won't get you there. Right. Like, when that patient comes in and they say, hey, diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, this isn't where I want to be. Well, you know what you've learned so far is what got you here. And if you want to get to a different place, you're going to have to learn some different things. Right now, that applies from and this is as close as I want to get to clinical in our conversation, but that applies in other directions as well. Right? It applies that, hey, if you want your business to get better, you need to be continuing to learn. Right? You need to be learning how to leverage this or how to leverage that. You need to be able to make those adjustments, and to make those informed adjustments, and not just do what everybody else is doing. Right. And I think I think that's an observation that we can make for 2025, is that there was, that this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we've always done it. And that did not serve everybody well. Right. So there's, from that, I take the invitation that, hey, you need to have a plan to learn. You need to have a plan to grow. And I'll let you in on the secret, especially for your situation, viewer or listener. It's not just for you, right? It needs to go for everybody on your team as well. You need to include them in. There's been all those scenarios where maybe somebody goes to a conference and then they come back and they're all fired up, and what do they find? They find a lot of inertia that they're fighting against, and a lot of times things don't change. And so, I think the real invitation is that the growth plan needs to be for you, and you need to be bringing people, and maybe it's not everybody, but it's a few people. It's enough to help get the wheels moving. It's especially helpful whenever you have people that are learning and growing, and they actually can see things differently than you, that they can see things that you don't see. So, to just pull the veil back here a little bit. And if you've listened to other interviews or other conversations that Nick and I have had over the years, we always reference that we're going to get together and we're going to do a podcast about Spider-Man or something like that, right? And before we hit record, we were talking about a new movie trailer that came out, right? And very, very short, blah, blah, blah. If Nick and I watch that, what sticks out to Nick is not necessarily the same thing that sticks out to me. Right? That's just the way, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a really good thing, because between the two of us, it enriches the experience. It gives better, it gives more handles to grab a hold of. It gives more imagination to the situation. So I think that's really a good thing to be looking at out there, is, hey, how do you create an environment where you grow? And and this is something that I would tell you that I've known, but it's still something that I continue to learn, is that you got to keep doing it. It's not, though, every once that's one of those original podcasts that we did, Nick, was around process.
Yeah.
Process says it's not a day; it's a daily thing, right? It's not like, oh, today's the day we're going to improve our quality, right? Well, that doesn't happen that way. our quality will improve when we work on it every day. And I think that's something that is far too easily and far too often overlooked.
Absolutely. So, Jess, as we get to the close for today's conversation, and this is but one conversation, this sort of topic one, and we'll get to where you can find Jesse, more from Jesse and Keystone Pharmacy Insights, especially, is there's a lot more that can be covered in this topic, a lot more words of wisdom that can be shared. But let's talk about 2026, right? So new year, obviously, as we're closing out the year, it's easy to look at, hey, what's our New Year's resolutions, whether that's personal, whether that's professional, what is going to be that part, or would you have any recommendations? Would you have any suggestions? Any ideas that you've heard from some of your colleagues that you say, you know what, this is really great?
Well, I would tell you this. I actually had a conversation with a colleague a couple weeks ago on this. I'm not a real big fan of resolutions. And I actually think you and I recorded a podcast on this back in 2019. I don't quote me on that. But I am more of a fan of a growth plan over anything else.
Sure.
I'm more of a fan of that. And this is the reason why. It's because where you are will determine the results that you get. Okay, so and to try to illustrate this, I'll just use numbers. Let's just say that you are a number 8 pharmacist. You're a rank 8 pharmacist, and whatever the scale needs to be for you, that's fine. But what you would find is that a rank 8 pharmacist is going to deliver rank 8 results. Okay, so that sounds reasonable. When you sit down and you say, I want to go up a couple levels. I want to be a rank 8 pharmacist who delivers rank 10 results. That's a wonderful goal to have, but that's not really the way things work. You have to your focus needs to be on, how do I become a rank 9 or a rank 10 or whatever. Like that's where the growth plan comes in. And I think we also talked, and I would give this, there's a world of difference between output goals and input goals. Right. I want to have, I want to, save X amount of dollars, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. Those are wonderful goals. But, I would also encourage people to be, what are those disciplines that will deliver those results? Right. Chances are, like let's say, and I'm not speaking for myself, but I might be. Like, let's say that somebody wants to lose a few pounds in the new year. Right. Like there's some disciplines that have to go in there. If my personal fitness level is a level 5, but I want to be a level 10, fit person, I need to do some different things. Like I'm not going to become level 10 fit with the snap of my fingers. It's going to be an ongoing process, and it's going to take a lot of things. It's going to take, it's going to take the exercise. It's going to take the nutrition. It's going to take, all those things. And I'm not going to try to embarrass my lack of clinical knowledge on these things. It's going to take giving up the donuts. Right. It's going to take, some of those different things. And so, I am a big fan of a growth plan, a big fan. And that similarly, that's a process. Right. So it's a little bit with some type of regular interval. And your interval may be completely different than the person next to you. But I would also say this, it's not just acquiring information. There's a lot of folks out there who are out of shape with too much information. Right. And like, I'm one of them. I can be out of shape, but I have the information. What I don't have is I don't have the application. Right. So the growth plan would include learning some and doing some, and learning some and doing some, and learning some and doing some, and then, making those adjustments. Right. It's continuous quality improvement when it comes down to it. It's that, hey, you learn this, and okay, I'm going to try doing it this way this week. All right, you come back next week. How are those results? Is this something that you can stick with? And do you need to make an adjustment? You need to make an adjustment. And that's been something else, is just that there's far too many of our colleagues who have, I'm going to try to word this as lovingly as I can. We have an inappropriate relationship with risk and failure. And as a result, we end up not taking any risks for improvement. And then that drops us back into that quote from Eric Hoffer: in times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. My friends, do not be learned, be a learner.
Yeah, it's absolutely the key item here for us. And this quote or this idea, to me, it also goes back. Jesse, you and I are both pharmacists.
Mm-hmm.
We've both taken the oath of the pharmacist at least once. And, continuing education is also something where, as we're approaching December 31 for myself, and right, what's the intent? We're in a profession, we're in an item where it's a commitment, not just for ourselves, but for the patients that we're working with, how we continue to learn, to grow, to expand our capabilities, our points of interest, our understanding, as it goes for these items. So I do want to wrap us up, Jesse, as it goes to, hey, our time for today, because we certainly can cover this and a whole lot more. And what is the approach? What is the mindset, and how we're taking to it? Again, the only constant we're going to be working with and dealing with, not just in our profession and not just in healthcare, is going to be change. And that's where I think this concept of someone who's being a learner versus learned makes a big difference for taking that approach to it. And when the changes do come, do we recoil because it's not something we're familiar with, or do we take it as the opportunity to learn and to expand our understanding for it? But Jesse, we've covered a lot today, and you've got a lot more to share, a lot more that you have shared with your teams and with the individuals that you work with. So as we're at the close here, mentioned at the beginning, you're the founder of Keystone Pharmacy Insights. So what is that, and where can people find you?
So my work has evolved over the years, right? I started off in the community setting, worked in chain, worked with independents, have done a number of different things. But what has become overwhelmingly obvious to me is the need for pharmacists to improve their skills in leading others and leading themselves at the same time. And so Keystone Pharmacy Insight is an organization that I started several years ago to help pharmacists improve their leadership skills so that they can lead themselves, their teams, and their patients well. The fact of the matter is that we all find ourselves in a situation, and whether you've used this language before or not, people are looking forward to you leading them, right? If somebody's ever asked you for a recommendation, hey, what would you recommend over the counter for fill in the blank? What they're asking is they're asking for you to lead them to better health. They don't know how to do it on their own. They need you to lead them. And so that's the space where I work in. I do that in a number of different ways, not the least of which is one-on-one, education and mentoring, looking to do more group things. You can find me. Is this the right time to move into where to find me, Nick?
Go for it. Yep.
Where I am where I am active, probably the most is on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm sure we'll get a link or something here in the show notes for that. I also have a Facebook community. Really, the idea is just to, in those communities, is to challenge you with a thought every day. And something that would, this can absolutely be part of your process to improve yourself. In the last year, I've actually even opened a Skool group, Skool. And Nick, I'll get you that link as well. We can put that out there. It's free to join. Just as a community where we come in there, we talk about different things. And there's going to be some interesting things coming to the school here after the first of the year. So I would encourage you just to join that group, show up there and be on the lookout for new opportunities to be able to grow yourself, to be able to grow your team, and really, challenge the future on your terms. right? Be proactive in that as opposed to reactive in that. Put yourself in a situation where you're making those choices proactively versus waiting for somebody to make a choice for you that you may or may not like. Right. And I think we've probably all been there where somebody has made a choice for us that we don't understand, we don't like. The invitation is there to do some things to put yourself in a better scenario. No, we would love to see you there. Love to interact with you on any of those platforms.
Excellent. Well, Jess, wishing you and your community, your family, nothing but the best as we finish out this year and as we head into 2026. I know I'm looking forward to many new great lessons. Again, we talked about there's many great challenges we continue to face, but with those challenges always comes the opportunity for new and strong leadership, and really for people to reveal themselves and their true selves. And that's the part where I think I like to look at this from a positive, point of view. Right? We get to see those flowers, we get to see those plants bloom, something awaken in folks that they get to share with the rest of the world.
It's a neat thing, and right, and really what we focus on is those foundational principles. Right. We look at, I stratify things three ways. There's principles that are timeless. These are the principles that always work. There's different tactics. Right. There's tactics that are fads. These are things that work for a time, but you really need to understand the underlying principle as to how those things works. And we also like to look at frameworks. We like to look at ways for us to process things and help connect dots and go. And those have been some of the most eye-opening things for myself and the people that I work with, is just to be able to help people frame those things in such a way that they can make meaningful impact and change.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Well, Jess, go out there, continue to make change for our listeners. We hope you're continuing to make your changes as well. That does mean we've wrapped up our episode here in our last episode for the 2025 year. So for our listeners, thank you for joining us. We hope you listen to the next episode of the Quality Corner Show, which will be in 2026. And before we go, we have one final message from the PQS team.
The Pharmacy Quality Solutions Quality Corner Show has a request for you. Our goal is to spread the word about how quality measurement can help improve health outcomes. And we need your help in sharing this podcast to friends and colleagues in the healthcare industry. We also want you to provide feedback, ask us questions, and suggest health topics you'd like to see covered. If you are a health expert and you want to contribute to the show or even talk on the show, please contact us. You can email info@pharmacyquality.com. Let us know what is on your mind, what we can address so that you are fully informed. We want you to be able to provide the best care for your patients and members, and we wish all of you listeners out there well.